If you are currently deciding between a multi-display setup or getting ultra-wide or super ultra-wide, then I hope today's video can be helpful for you. Hi, what's up everyone? This is Edward on another episode of Value for Your Money series on Gamers Clinic. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my experience after switching over to a Samsung CRG9 Super Ultrawide 49-inch display from a dual screen setup from a gaming perspective. I'll first do a quick comparison of the differences on both setups and then share with you my feedback and preference, which then can hopefully be a point of reference for your decision making. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to stay updated, and let's stare at the details. Ever since flat screen panel prices have dropped, I was finally able to get a second 32-inch monitor that I've wanted for quite a while, a little over 2 years ago. To be really honest, I loved having two screens. Having that second display opened a wide variety of options. For instance, I could watch Netflix while doing repetitive farming in a game, open a digital walkthrough or chat on one screen while gaming on the other, or maybe even play two different games at the same time. Just kidding on that last part. However, there was just one thing that always bothered me with this setup. I was not able to use both screens for gaming immersion at the same time due to that annoying bezel that blocks whatever's in focus at the center of the screen. It was literally not fun and annoying to game with a dual monitor setup. So 4 months ago, I decided to switch over to the Samsung CRG Super Ultrawide. My first impression of seeing this 49-inch panel as one piece was that it was huge.
That's what she said.
But after setting it up, actually takes up less space on the table compared to two 32-inch displays. That being said, you will still need a table that is wide enough and has enough depth, so you will still have room for your mouse and keyboard if you don't plan to wall mount this monitor, as the stand itself takes up quite a lot of table real estate. And also, the screen cannot be easily positioned to maximize table space usage for corner setups as well due to its width. And after booting into Windows, the first big difference that I noticed was that the available vertical space became physically smaller, even though the vertical resolution is still the same as my old displays at 1440 pixels. Though, if you are already using a dual 27-inch monitors, then there wouldn't be any difference over here. The next big difference with this setup that I noticed is that now, instead of having the option to turn off one display that I'm not using, the whole screen now is always on. If that makes sense. In addition to that, using input from two sources will now require me to manually turn on picture-by-picture mode through a few clicks on the on-screen display, and audio output is limited to only one source. As for gaming, the absence of the bezel is wonderful. For games that natively support ultra-wide resolutions, games instantly became more immersive, especially racing games. For Battle Royale games, you actually get to see more, which could give you an advantage over other players. And in open world games, the extra rendered scenery and view is priceless. However, most in-game cutscenes will still be rendered in a 16:9 ratio, so you'll still have those black bars on the side. And talking about black bars, games that don't support ultra-wide resolutions, say if you do decide to boot up a legacy game, then you will also have those two big black bars on the side, which I personally don't mind, but others might. But what I do mind is my frames per second taking a big hit from all that extra pixels being rendered in super ultra-wide resolutions of 5120 by 1440. With all that extra pixels, just 1 million pixels short from 4K resolution, my RTX 2080 is even struggling to pump out constant 60 plus FPS at the highest graphical settings. Console gaming on the Super Ultrawide is not that amazing as PC gaming though. When I try to boot up the PS4 and Nintendo Switch on the CRG9, the screen is stretched so much that it's no longer pretty. The current workaround that I could come up with is to turn on the picture-by-picture mode and game in 21:9 or 16:9 ratio, or play it on Windows via an Elgato capture card. But the downside is that half the screen will be black as compared to having a full screen when playing on a TV. So now that I've shared the key differences that I noticed during the past 4 months, it is hard to say which one is better for gaming. Aside from the obvious price tag of Super Ultrawide requiring a lot more budget, I think it really comes down to personal preference and gaming usage scenarios. For me, sometimes I still wish I have dual displays, but other times I also love the Super Ultrawide. What I mean is, if your preference is leaning towards full screen gaming and immersion, then the Super Ultrawide will definitely not disappoint you. You don't have to worry about calibrating the color on both screens to match, as even identical monitors can have slight color and contrast difference. Or trying to find an optimum symmetrical position for both screens so you don't have to turn your head too much to one side. As you know, that annoying bezel is right there in the middle, making that space unusable. But at the same time, you will be losing the ability to have a second separate window open when gaming at full screen, such as having your armory or utility management screen right where you can see it, or having a live preview screen if you are a streamer, or opening a group chat or communication software in another window to chat with your friends. And on top of that, as mentioned earlier, if like me, you love to play all your games at the highest graphics quality settings, you will also need to sacrifice some graphic fidelity for playable frame rates using the Super Ultrawide. Unless, of course, you're willing to shell out an additional $1,000 for a RTX 2080 Ti, on top of the $1,500 you already spent on the monitor. But just in case you're wondering, you can easily search and use 4K benchmarks as a reference for your graphic card to see how well it will perform on the Super Ultrawide. So I hope that with me sharing my experience with these two display setups help give you some insights and can help you with your decision. Just keep in mind that before you come to a conclusion, you really need to ask yourself, how will you be using your display most of the time? But if you really cannot decide on one, you can always go with the 21:9 ultra-wide screen, which is kind of like the jack of all trades monitor. They offer slightly more view than a single display, takes up less space, and have price tags that are not as high as the Super Ultrawide, meaning you can still put your current single display into use as a secondary display beside your Ultrawide. Alright, thank you as always for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll try my best to answer all of them. And if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button as it will really help this channel more than you know it, and I'll see you again in the next video.